In June, Congress passed a bipartisan bill to increase the debt limit and impose meaningful fiscal controls. That law was appropriately titled the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Its passage marked a long overdue step towards fiscal sanity. I assume you got to go back about a dozen years until Congress has taken such a fiscally responsible step. The Nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office, or CBO as we call it here in town, projects the Fiscal Responsibility Act could save Americans $1.5 trillion over the next 10 years. I say could save because for this to hold true, Congress must adhere to spending caps that it has imposed. The CBO's latest long-term budget outlook shows that in 30 years, our national debt will be $11 trillion lower than previously projected. This is in large part thanks to this bill passed this year, the Fiscal Responsibility Act. While $11 trillion is certainly a large sum, it's a drop in the bucket compared to the $118 trillion in debt that the U.S. is expected to chalk up over those same 30 years. So, of course, the fiscal path we're on is not sustainable. If you take debt held by the public, today public debt is about as large as the annual U.S. economic output. Within 6 years, public debt will reach a historically high 107% of GDP. The previous record was set in the wake of World War II. Once that dismal record is broken, public debt will grow faster than the economy with no end in sight, as you can see from the chart on display here. When public holds large amounts of debt, well, it naturally slows the economy, it naturally reduces national income, and naturally increases inflation. It also leads to ballooning interest costs, which are already at a 22-year high. Based on current trajectory, here's a snapshot of years ahead. So pay attention to the chart, please. Within 5 years, the United States will spend more on interest than on national defense. Within 8 years, interest payments will surpass our spending on non-defense discretionary programs. Over the next 10 years, interest on our debt will cost taxpayers more than $10.4 trillion. That's $10.4 trillion that could be used to improve the lives of Americans. Now, instead, it will pad the pockets of our nation's creditors, even including foreign adversaries like China, which considers investment in the national debt of the United States to be a good investment. Finally, within 30 years, interest payments will reach over $5 trillion a year. That would make interest the single largest annual government spending, surpassing both Social Security and Medicare. Now, everybody listening and everybody not listening knows that we can't keep swiping our nation's maxed out credit card while we cross our fingers for pre-pandemic interest rates to return. Families, farmers, and small businesses make trade-offs every day to stay on budget. They have to balance their checkbooks besides staying on budget. Congress, of course, needs to do the same. Enacting spending caps in Fiscal Responsibility Act was the very, very easiest part. So the real challenge will be walking that walk and sticking to those caps. To do this, Congress must renew its focus on two things: fiscal responsibility and good government. Now, recently, Fitch downgraded the United States credit rating just last month. It named both fiscal responsibility and good government as factors in its decision. Congress has the responsibility and the duty to demonstrate fiscal responsibility and good government, and do it now as we work to fund federal agencies and programs for this upcoming fiscal year. Former Fed Chairman Paul Volcker told Congress in 1980s, quote, "Cutting spending may appear to be the most painful part of the job, but I'm convinced that the pain for all of us will be ultimately much greater if it is not accomplished," end of quote. Paul Volcker's advice is even more apt today than ever because our national spending and our national debt is much greater than it was in Paul Volcker's time. We need to stop governing from crisis to crisis and return to regular order like we are today on the appropriations bills before the United States Senate. That means restoring a key component of Senate procedures: real and robust debate on spending decisions. The Senate has only debated one or more appropriation bills 7 times, just 7 times, since 2008. The last time we did it was 5 years ago, 2018. Otherwise, between 2018 and last year, we operated under this omnibus appropriation bill process, where we didn't give proper attention to each segment of our government. We didn't have much chance for debate and probably no chance for amendment. Last year, as one of those years, not a single funding bill was reported out of committee. Congress didn't complete its appropriations until December 23rd. We must do better this year, and we need to applaud Chairman Murray, Ranking Member Collins. They have both done their part by shepherding all 12 regular funding bills through the Senate Appropriations Committee. Now, it is the full Senate's turn. So let's get to work, get the job done. I yield the floor and suggest the absence of a quorum.